It is 25 April 2021. It's Sunday, and it's time for the CG report. And U.S. sanctions pushed Iran to the brink of bankruptcy. That and a lot of other things to go over on today's report. And before we get into actually giving you information from the report, I've got a couple of people to mention. Actually, I've got a whole list of people to mention. We're sitting here today, and I'm thinking very few people will be here because we got people traveling, we got people sick, etc. And we had literally the church fill up with people from out of town. And so we have, starting with Kevin and Yolanda O'Leary. I was friends with him on Facebook, and I'm not on Facebook anymore, but here they are coming from Georgia and Idaho. They made a point of telling me that because they spend half of their time in Georgia and half of their time with family in Idaho. But they decided to spend a week with us in Sarasota, Florida, and so thank you for being here. And then we also have Mike and Lana Bespali. Did I pronounce that right? All right. They're from, believe it or not, Portland, Oregon, right in the lion's den. And so they're here for a while. It is such a pleasure having you here, and thank you for this effort. It means a great deal to me to see your smiling faces. And then we also have Teresa and Kaneen, and they came with Eric, who's been here before. He's the brother of Ron, and so they're visiting, and it's wonderful to have both of you here today. Thank you very much for making the effort. And then Mitch and Marilyn Wooldridge came today, and her brother, Marilyn's brother, is named Ronnie, and he's been watching these updates for quite a long time. And so I'd like to say hi to Ronnie because he's not here and they are. But I want to thank Ronnie for telling you about this. And they're visiting. They are from Illinois. Is that right? Illinois. But they have a place down here, and they're here for a couple months in Venice, which is just the next town south of us. And so welcome to all of you as well. Thank you for making the effort. And then we also have Soli. She just walked in today with Ray, and what a smiling face. So it's wonderful to have you here, ma'am, and I hope you have a good time with us today. So thank all of you for being here today. And let's see here. I've got just a title here from Worthy Politics. According to an email that was released by WikiLeaks, Dominion advisor met with John Podesta offering anything to help defeat Donald Trump. Nothing to see here, so let's move on. All right, starting out today with some news from and about Israel. From Security Mag, City of Eilat in Israel deploys advanced behavioral analytics. This almost sounds like that movie, what was it, Tom Cruise did? Anybody remember? Minority Report. Thank you. This almost sounds like Minority Report, where they're checking on somebody. Now I see another face that's here, and where are you from?
From Missouri.
From Missouri. And what's your name, ma'am?
Jackie Richard.
Jackie Richard. And are you visiting? Are you with Jody? Oh, okay. Good deal. Well, it's wonderful. I did not know that. It's wonderful to have you here, ma'am. We're singing a song, and I look up, and I mean, after singing, you came in during the music?
Yeah.
Okay, well, there you go. That's why I didn't see you. So, oh, yeah, you know what? One more thing. The whole church is full, and I overlooked Don and Pam, who they have been here before. And so I'm used to seeing their faces. They've been here several times before, but Don and Pam are moving to Sarasota, or actually Bradenton. So they're going to be our neighbors now, and they have been up in Fort Bragg for many years. He retired from the U.S. Army, and I apologize. I'm looking right over you guys because I'm so used to seeing them, but it is so good to know that they are going to be down here sharing with us more often. So praise the Lord for that. Good deal. All right, so we have, once again, the City of Eilat in Israel deploys advanced behavioral analytics. The City of Eilat, Israel, has implemented VSITE's behavioral recognition system to detect, predict, and analyze events of interest in real time and alert authorities of crowding, violent, suspicious activity, traffic or crowd congestion, and more. The VSITE's behavioral analytics are integrated into the city's existing surveillance system, which includes more than 300 cameras. And this is not a really big city. It's kind of along a beachfront, and I don't remember there being a lot of Eilat to go to, and so 300 cameras is a lot, that are monitored at a centrally located command and control center. The behavioral analytics can monitor hundreds of cameras in real time, and upon recognition or prediction, there it is, of unusual behavior, a command center operator receives an immediate alert and can notify the authorities. Avinom Naharai, director of the city's Info Methods and Systems Division in charge of the project, stated that the solution enables the city to quickly and efficiently address abnormal events for the benefit of its residents and visitors' safety and security. Eilat deployed the V-Sites solution to autonomously increase situational awareness and generate alerts on events of interest, such as crowding events in areas and locations where COVID-19 guidelines are not being followed, predicting gatherings by monitoring traffic and people's movements towards a certain location, and more. So, I won't be going back to Israel anymore anyway, because they require you to have a shot, and I'm just not going to get one. But I probably would not go to Eilat after that. I've been there before. I've seen it. I don't need to be monitored from 300 cameras at all times. I mean, it's happening all over the world anyway, but just doesn't interest me. From GNS, Canada's third party endorses boycott of Israel. The whole world's just going down the tubes, and this is one of the signs of it. Members of Canada's Progressive New Democrat Party have voted overwhelmingly to endorse a boycott against Israel during its recent party convention. They just got done doing this a while ago down in New Zealand, and here they're doing it up in Canada. Obviously, it's a third party, but still, it's becoming more prominent in Canada. At its virtual party convention on April 10th, the NDP, the third largest party in Canada, adopted the resolution Justice and Peace in Israel-Palestine that calls for a boycott of products emanating from Israel settlements, as well as an arms embargo on Israel. The adoption of this motion today was a result of a groundswell of support from the grassroots membership, said Amy Kishek, one of the lead organizers for the resolution at the NDP convention. Not only is this a position hugely popular with the NDP membership, but it is something that is supported by the vast majority of the Canadian labor movement as well as the Canadian population at large. The entire country up north of us, and I know we got some people that are streaming right now from Canada. My heart breaks for them because the whole nation is like the U.S. It's just going down the drain. Anyway, from all Israel, welcome back to Israel. Tourists will be welcomed back to the Holy Land, but only if vaccinated against COVID. Hence, Charlie Garrett will never travel to Israel again. On May 23rd, the gates will open once again to foreigners, but don't rush to buy your tickets just yet. Israel is dipping its toes back into the world of tourism with a tepid and methodical re-entry to a long-lost sector that has not been able to serve one foreign tourist since March of 2020. Here are the requirements. Florida's been taking tourists all along. I mean, we shut down for about 10 seconds, then we open back up, and we've had people here all along. It's funny how the people that come down here, because they can, come down here and they wear masks. I just don't get it. We got freedom, we don't have to do this, and they come down here and then they get angry at you when you're in the store not wearing a mask as if you're doing something wrong. Doesn't make any sense, but that's what they want to do. And the thing that's really breaking my heart about this is I walk around, drive around, I go around. Not a lot, I'm not a big traveler, but when I'm going around, especially out on the Key, I see families, and none of them are wearing masks except the little children. It's become a fashion thing with them. And all the little children that I pass out there all have their masks on. And I think, how sad this is. How sad this is. Anyway, let's see here. Here are the requirements if you want to go to Israel. First, you must be vaccinated. Second, pre-approved groups only may come. You can't go as an individual. Third, all visitors will be required to have a PCR test before boarding their flight to Israel, negative for COVID. And then fourth, they will undergo a serological test to prove their vaccination upon arrival at Ben Gurion. So there you go. If you want to go to Israel, that's your thing. From Times of Israel, Israel has not reached herd immunity. Indian variant, a concern, says Virus Czar. Keep the people scared, folks. Professor Nahum Ash urges Israelis to stay vigilant, wear masks indoors and in crowded areas. Explains new strain is showing bad signs. Haaretz, this is why we have Ezekiel 36:22 recorded in the Bible. Yet not for your sake, O house of Israel, am I doing these things, but for my holy name, which you have blasphemed among the nations wherever you went, and still in Israel today. This Israeli trans woman and trans man couple is expecting twins, and they're proud about this. It was a big article in Haaretz. Israeli couple, both transgender, have been together for 8 years and are about to become parents together. From Ynet, Israel, Greece sign biggest ever defense deal. The agreement includes a $1.65 billion contract for the establishment and operation of a training center for the Hellenic Air Force by Israel defense contractor Elbit Systems over a 22-year period. The training center will be modeled on Israel's own flight academy and will be equipped with 10 M346 training aircraft produced by Italian company Leonardo. Elbit will supply kits to upgrade and operate Greece's T-6 aircraft and also provide training simulators and logistical support. So it looks like Greece may be one of the sheep nations when the nations are judged after the tribulation period. Good job for Greece. Some news concerning the state of Christianity today. Before I give you that news, I'd like to thank Mike Provident. He is a friend that I have out in Idaho, and he sent me this bandana which has snakes all over it, all kinds of snakes from around America. And so I like snakes. I'm not really keen on them as I used to be, but I do like snakes, and I also just appreciate the bandana. But the reason why I'm kind of reticent to say still really like snakes is because when I was in Malaysia, I had a spitting cobra in my backyard. And I didn't know it was a spitting cobra. I thought it was just a king cobra. And yeah, just a cobra. And so I picked it up behind its neck to throw it into the woods, and he spit right in my eye and put out my right eye. And so I can tell you that snakes are generally okay, but don't pick up spitting snakes because you may lose an eye in the process. I did not lose my eye. It took off the outside, the cornea or whatever it's called out there. It burned all of that off, but it did grow back, and it actually grew back better than it was originally. I could see better when I got out of the military by far than when I went in. The doctor that did my test called it telescopic vision. I think he said I had 1510 vision, which was better than he'd ever seen before, but that was because of the snake putting out my eye. Let's see here. Oh, also one other thing. I got a bandana from Don Murray, who's a friend of mine. He sent me one some time ago, and he sent me another one. And I can't wear it during the prophecy update because it's the same color as the blue screen wall behind me. And so what would happen is my head would be empty, and which is true anyway. But I do want to thank Don for that. So yeah, it's a great one. It's got all kinds of great. You know, I'm kind of an old hippie. It's got all of these colors all over it, and it's got the swirls from Van Gogh all over it. And so it's very good looking, and I wore it on Thursday for the Bible class, but I could not wear it today because it would reflect who I actually am. Anyway, from the Edmonton Journal, one arrested for mischief, obstruction after Grace Life Church fence pulled down last Sunday. Now, last Sunday, I read you an article from Todd Starnes, which said that a group of Christians went in and tore down that fence, and that was not correct. Todd Starnes had a bad article. It was one person that was out there causing mischief, and they cited him and, obviously put the fence back up. But that was an incorrect report, and I wanted to make sure that people knew that. What happened there was not what was reported by Todd Starnes and what I passed on. And usually Todd is pretty good about things, but he did not get that right. Okay, from the Christian Post, Catholic priests, and this is kind of an offshoot of Catholics, they have done their own little thing because they are not accepted within the main Roman Catholicism, but they're kind of in the same, general grouping as Catholicism. But Catholic Priests Group backs bill requiring Christian adoption agencies to place kids with LGBT adults. Yeah. A group of Catholic priests has come out in support of a bill that would require all adoption agencies that receive federal funding to place children within same-sex couples. The Association of U.S. Catholic Priests has expressed support for the Every Child Deserves a Family Act. Now, when I get down to the end of this, you'll see how unclear thinking these people are, but that's, indicative of people on the left in general anyway. According to the Lepanto Institute, the bill would effectively shut down the adoption services of Catholic charities by mandating homosexual adoptions as well as potentially adopting children to couples of any belief system, including active Satanists. The association says, we are committed to religious freedom and believe that it need not conflict with other essential rights and protections. Religious freedom protects everyone's right to practice the religion of their choice. That's what they say. Or no religion at all, as long as doing so does not inflict harm on others. So they want their cake and they want to eat it too, because they say you can have your own religion, but you can't live by your own religion. And our religion, or anybody else's, well, not all of them, but our religion is not harming anybody. We have set standards within our religion, and what happens outside of that religion doesn't matter. That's people's choices. This is a fallen world, and if they want to come into the envelope of Christianity, that's great. But if they don't, we don't, try to harm them in any way, shape, or form. But they want to bind us in our religion, not apart from our religion. To argue that religious freedom justifies the use of taxpayer dollars to, here it is, discriminate against children. These are children that have not yet been put into a home. And they're saying by not forcing them into something that we disagree with, we are discriminating against them. How unclear is that thinking? And prospective parents is a distortion of such freedom and a misunderstanding of civil rights law. Well, they don't know what they're talking about. Breitbart. 1,200 church leaders denounce, this is in the UK, and I'm so glad to see this, denounce Boris Johnson's vaccine passport scheme. 1,200 church leaders. They said it represents an existential threat to liberal democracy itself. In an open letter, the church leaders, Anglican and Catholic alike, warned that domestic vaccine passports are one of the most dangerous policy proposals in the history of the United Kingdom. This is 1,200 church leaders. I couldn't believe that they did this. There's also a legitimate fear that this scheme would be the thin edge of the wedge leading to a permanent state of affairs in which COVID vaccine status could be expanded to encompass other forms of medical treatment and perhaps even other criteria beyond that. The scheme has the potential to bring about the end of liberal democracy as we know it and to create a surveillance state in which the government uses technology to control certain aspects of citizens' life. You think so? As such, this constitutes one of the most dangerous policy proposals ever to be made in the history of British politics. We risk creating a two-tier society, something I have said for over a year now, a medical apartheid in which an underclass of people who decline vaccination are excluded from significant areas of public life. The church leaders said that they would be compelled to vigorously resist any potential acts of parliament to bar worshippers from attending services based on their vaccination status, saying that to shut out those deemed by the state to be social undesirables would be anathema to us and a denial of the truth of the gospel. 1,200 leaders did that. Okay, speaking about the way you're supposed to do things within the church, okay, this is from the Church of Christ, who has their own problems with doctrines, but they got this right, okay? And I wanted to read this so that everybody understands how things should be done in your church, okay? Even if they have terrible doctrine in many areas, they got this right. Mail Online. Lesbian hairdressers informed in letter from church elders in Georgia that she will be publicly excommunicated and fellow Christians will be banned from interacting with her unless she repents her sexuality. They're doing this openly and publicly. And this is the way that it's supposed to be handled. Okay? Crystal Cox has been attending the Woodstock Church of Christ for 5 years. A mother of 2, she divorced her husband and is now with another woman. Before Christmas, the church elders wrote to her asking for a meeting. When she didn't respond, they wrote again April 1st, warning of excommunication. The elders said she would be spurned by all in the church community for sin. They condemned her lack of desire to hear our concerns, apparent lack of willingness to repent, and the public display of your homosexual relationship. She posted the letter from the elders on Instagram, captioning it, "I can't wait for my denouncement ceremony." That's fine, she has a right to do that, but they are doing the right thing. Now I have a question for you, smart church here. Can you tell me what chapter of the Bible that is stated, where this is to happen? Not specifically an open letter, but that you were to expel somebody from the church that's doing this. No, that's Old Testament. We want New Testament. Yeah. It's not Timothy. That's a pastoral epistle. I'll give you a hint. It begins with 1, ends with 5, and the middle word is Corinthians. Anybody? Okay, 1 Corinthians 5. As a matter of fact, we've got time. If we're late today, that's fine. I'll just stay up late doing my job when I get home. I will read you this. It is very short. It gives you all kinds of doctrine in 1 Corinthians chapter 5. And yet it's only just a few verses long. But you will get all kinds of doctrine. You want to know about eternal salvation, whether it's true or not? It's right here in this chapter. Anyway, let's go over it together. It is actually reported that there is sexual immorality among you, and such sexual immorality is not even named among the Gentiles. Now, this is the church of the Corinthians, and the common Gentile practice there was homosexuality. So he's reporting on something that he says is worse than that. Okay, so that's another point of doctrine right there, which I won't get into today. Anyway, that a man has his father's wife, and you are puffed up and have not rather mourned that he who has done this deed might be taken away from among you? For I indeed, as absent in body but present in spirit, have already judged, as though I were present, him who has so done this deed. Here it is. In the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, when you are gathered together, along with my spirit, with the power of our Lord Jesus Christ, deliver such a one to Satan for the destruction of the flesh, that his spirit may be saved in the day of the Lord Jesus. Okay, that's a little doctrine there for you if you understand, but I'm not going to get into it right now. I'm just reading you the chapter. Your glorying is not good. Do you not know that a little leaven leavens the whole lump? Another point of doctrine there. Therefore purge out the old leaven, that you may be a new lump. Since you are truly unleavened, believe it or not, we're going to talk about that in our sermon today. You are truly unleavened, for indeed Christ, our Passover, was sacrificed for us. Another point of doctrine for you. Therefore, let us keep the feast. Another point of doctrine, not with the old leaven, nor with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. I wrote to you in my epistle not to keep company with sexually immoral people. Yet I certainly did not mean with the sexually immoral people of this world. In other words, if you're with a person in the world that does these things, that's fine. They're not claiming to be a Christian, and you don't have any sway over them. You can give them the gospel, but you can be their friend even if they don't accept the gospel. Yet, I certainly did not mean with the sexually immoral people of this world, or with the covetous, or with extortioners, or idolaters, since then you would need to go out of the world. But now I have written you not, here it is, what they did, not to keep company with anyone named a brother who is sexually immoral, or covetous, or an idolater, or a reviler, or a drunkard, or an extortioner, not even to eat with such a person. For what have I to do with judging those who are outside? Do you not judge those who are inside? But those who are outside, God judges. Therefore, put away from yourself the evil person. They did exactly what they should have done. Even though they get a lot of other doctrine wrong, they did correctly, and I thought I'd highlight that to you today. If you're in a church where something like that is going on, it is your obligation to take care of it. Okay, some news from the Mideast and Africa today. From WFB, which is the Washington Free Beacon. Here it is. Listen to this. U.S. sanctions pushed Iran to the brink of bankruptcy. Now, we've been hearing from this administration for the past 3 months how they're going to make this deal work, and they're going back into it. They're going to get America exploded by these people and all that kind of stuff. Listen to this. Iran burned through nearly all of its cash reserves in the final years of the Trump admin as harsh economic sanctions crippled the country's economy and brought the hardline regime to the brink of financial collapse. Have you heard any of this from our current administration? No. According to the findings published by the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, the Islamic Republic had $122.5 billion on hand in 2018 and just $4 billion by 2020. Trump had them exactly where they needed to be. They could not have survived another few months. And yet, now we're going back into what we were doing before. When the former admin's maximum pressure campaign on Tehran was at its height, Iran burned through the $118.5 billion in 2 years, nearly depleting its cash reserves. The country's coffers are forecast to grow by several billions in the coming years as the Biden admin moves to unwind sanctions as part of an effort to re-enter the 2015 nuclear deal. The IMF's findings are the clearest evidence to date that the years-long U.S. sanctions campaign was successful in emptying the regime's pocketbook at a time when Iran was spending great sums on its foreign terrorism enterprise and nuclear enrichment program. In other words, they had been taking all of their surplus and spending it on blowing other people up in other countries and building a nuclear program. And we had them within months, maybe less than months, of collapsing financially. And yet we're going back to the same old trough that we've been feeding from under the Obama administration. Going on, sanctions gutted Iran's oil trade, a key source of revenue for the regime, and forced it to tap heavily into reserve funds. While liberal critics of this approach claim that sanctions only hurt the Iranian people, the IMF's findings show the hardline regime was under more economic stress than previously known. It is also likely that Iran would not have been able to weather another 4 years of the Trump admin's sanctions. Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said 96% of Iran's foreign exchange reserves were wiped out as a direct result of our maximum pressure campaign. Any sanctions relief granted by the Biden admin in its new diplomatic talks with Iran will provide the regime with a much-needed lifeline for survival. The country's dire economic situation has generated several waves of democratic protests that threaten to depose the ruling clerical mullahs. Iran's interest in restarting discussions with the U.S. early in the Biden admin's first term signals the regime is desperate for sanctions relief and recognizes that its grip on its power is under threat. The IMF projects that Iran's reserves will grow to $12.2 billion in 2021 and $21 billion by 2022. That number could be higher if the Biden admin unwinds, as he certainly will, sanctions and clears the way for international businesses to reinvest in the Iranian economy. The Obama admin adopted a similar approach in 2015 when it first negotiated the deal and removed many of the toughest sanctions in place. It's like we have a death wish in this nation to vote these people into office and to put ourselves in harm's way by people that have no good intent for the people of the world at all. From the Times of Israel, ex-IAEA official, in theory, Iran could reach weapons-grade enrichment. I said this a week ago, and I don't know if you believed me, but they say in a week. With Iran's announcement that it had begun enriching uranium to 60% purity, a former top official at the UN's nuclear watchdog said the Islamic Republic could potentially reach weapons-grade purity within the space of 1 week if it wanted to. Ali Henion, I guess, I don't know how you pronounce his name, an ex-deputy director general of the International Atomic Energy Agency, stressed jumping from 60 to 90% in a week was theoretical, comparing it to the month or so needed to go from 20 to 60%. Enrichment at 20% is already a relatively short technical step away from weapons-grade levels of 90%. However, this guy told the New York Times that Iran would still need months to produce a nuclear bomb, even if it did so. Who cares? They're starting. It'd take them a couple months, and they got a bomb, and they can do it right now. This guy also played down the significance of the latest increase in enrichment levels. From Haaretz, Iran says 60% uranium enrichment is reversible if U.S. revokes sanctions. So they're threatening us again. They've done this every single week since Biden got into office, and we just keep letting them do it. We have the lunatics running the asylum. Amen. From the Wall Street Journal, Iran nuclear deal talks advance as U.S. offers sanction relief. Biden administration signals openness to easing measures against oil, finance, and other sectors, but Tehran wants to see specifics. They're telling us what to do. They were within months of collapsing as a economy, and those leaders would have been thrown out on their ear, and we could have been back to a decent running, friendly nation, and it's not going to happen now. And Gog Magog is right down the line because of the actions of the Democrat Party of the United States of America. From All Arab News, Muslim Brotherhood leaders apparently fleeing Turkey ahead of calls for extradition to Egypt. Egypt is asking for them. They're trying to make an alliance with Turkey right now, and so they're saying, we want you to extradite these criminals back to us. Guess where they're going? Egypt is calling for the extradition of Muslim Brotherhood leaders in Turkey, but some of them have begun to flee to both London and the United States. Yeah, they got a friend in the White House. I mean, the Muslim Brotherhood had an open door with Obama. They could go in anytime they wanted, open door into the White House. and now they have it again with the current administration. Several members of the Muslim Brotherhood sought refuge in Turkey after the coup in Egypt in 2013, which ousted their leader Mohamed Morsi from power as president of Egypt. Relations between the two countries deteriorated drastically after that, as Turkey maintained that the coup was illegitimate and continued supporting Morsi against current President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. Now, Cairo is also demanding the handover of Brotherhood leaders who are wanted for terrorism in Egypt and had sought terrorism in the Muslim Brotherhood? What? And had sought refuge in Turkey. Turkey raised the possibility of deporting the leaders to other countries instead, but Egypt insisted that they be extradited to Egypt to answer to the charges against them. And so instead of that, they're rushing off to the United States so they can go sleep in the White House, the Franklin Room. From the Times of Israel, Sudan officially annuls 63-year Israel boycott law. Thank you, Donald Trump. Yahoo! Neighbor who tossed an elderly Jewish woman off a balcony, we reported on this last year, while yelling, Allah Akbar, avoids trial because he smoked weed. If you want to kill somebody in France, just go smoke some weed, do your thing, and then they won't try you. Did you know that? Listen to this. Yeah, Kobili Traore killed an Orthodox Jewish woman in 2018 by throwing her off her balcony in Paris. France's top court has ruled that he will not go on trial because he was in a drug-induced psychosis. Cannabis was found in his blood after he was taken into custody for the killing. So he had a little bit of pot in his blood, and he gets off for killing a woman. I'm not going to France. As we span the globe, we try to never miss something interesting from Mongolia. From Big News Network, Mongolia reported 1,340 COVID-19 cases in 24 hours. I said this was going to happen. I keep bringing this up week after week. They went on year-long lockdown, and I said as soon as they come off of lockdown, they're going to have the same problem everybody else has had. You have to get through this, okay? Bringing the national tally to 21,995. One of the latest confirmed cases was imported from abroad, and the remaining ones were locally transmitted. Meanwhile, 3 more deaths and 427 more recoveries were reported, taking the nationwide counts to 50 deaths and 11,877 recoveries, respectively. Okay, 50 deaths is 0.227% of 21,995. It's the same numbers you see all over the world. The book of Daniel prophesied that technology would increase in the end times. What has come out in the past week in this regard? From Zero Hedge, the U.S. Air Force has big plans for the Hexa flying car. This is very cool. I know we've seen flying cars coming out lately. The U.S. Air Force is getting involved in it. The Hexa is an electric vehicle takeoff and landing, I hope so, and landing, wingless multicopter. It is developed by Lift Aircraft, a Texas-based company. In May, the Air Force will start testing the flying car that was designed for the commercial market to be used in military missions, including rescuing troops, delivering cargo, and conducting security checks over an airfield. In late March, one of the flying cars was loaded onto an HC-130J and was transported from Ohio to Texas. This was a test to prove that the eVTOL aircraft fit to be transported by U.S. military cargo planes. It was a test, make sure it fits and it's the right weight and all that. The initial test was with a single eVTOL, while a C-130H could carry up to 4 of these cars, with newer C-130J models potentially able to transport 5 or 6 at a time. The first eVTOL prototype was unveiled in February of 2021, so this is just out on the market. And the first production units were delivered to the Air Force for testing and airworthiness certification. The Hexa isn't exactly a flying car. It's better described as a multi-rotor drone, which is considered an ultralight aircraft that doesn't need a pilot's license to fly. This is what's important. Such eVTOL capable of landing without a runway could be used to ferry troops and supplies needed to stand up operations while also providing a platform for crisis response. The Hexa will undergo tests for all of these. Right now, Hexa's abilities are limited and geared toward the commercial recreation market. The aircraft has room for one person and can fly for about 10 to 15 minutes. It's not a lot of time here, and cover a range of 10 to 15 miles, depending on the payload. A person can learn to fly Hexa quickly because many of the flight systems are automated. In the future, the platform could potentially serve as an armed Overwatch aircraft to protect ground troops, even in its current limited capability. The Hexa could be useful. While it can't carry as much weight as required to satisfy certain logistics missions, it could transfer smaller cargo. Now, what's interesting is anybody can fly this thing. You don't need a license to do that. It's actually not true because I couldn't do it. When I was in Japan, I went to get my private pilot's license, and I aced the course. It's a written test you take. I got a 100%. The lady said she'd never seen that before. Good job. And then I took my, solo after flying with my training. Oh, I'll tell you something. She was the first female Japanese instructor in the country. And I was her very first student, and she was one nervous lady with me at the helm. I am a terrible pilot. So I did my solo. I did land without crashing it. I got out, and I said, I'm never flying again. I am the worst pilot on the planet. But, yeah, anyway, there you go with that. Hidiko's over here laughing. So, anyway, anybody but Charlie Garrett can fly that thing, and it's pretty cool. I'd like to say something else about technology. Something happened this week which reminds me that you might want to check this out from time to time. In our backyard, Hideko and me, we have a 24/7 live stream camera. You can look out at Sarasota Bay and you can see, dolphins swimming by, and you can see boats going by and all that kind of stuff. If you want the link, email me and I'll send it to you. Okay, it's very nice to see. I move it from time to time. Every day we watch the sunset coming up. Okay, this week there was a marvelous atmospheric condition that I caught when I was waking up. I took a screenshot of it and I sent it to Sergio in Israel, and I said, Sergio, we had a rocket take off. And sure enough, that's what it was. The lady said, well, you can back up the live stream. I didn't know you could do that. So I backed it up, and you can watch the rocket take off. You can watch it go up into the atmosphere, and then the two things that they fly back down, SpaceX, they land those things so they can reuse them. You can watch them go down. And what happened is all of that stuff, the gases from these things, made this most beautiful, beautiful anomaly in the sky. So there you go with that. If you ever know of a SpaceX or NASA launch from the Kennedy Space Center, you can log into that live stream that I have, the Siesta Cam, and you can watch it take off live. So there you go. I just want to let you know that that is Daniel 12 technology at its best. The whole world can watch the two witnesses, or they can turn that off and they can watch the live streams in Siesta Key, Florida. Okay, it's a dangerous world, including the inevitable plagues the book of Revelation prophesies of. Let's see how that's developing. From the Epic Times, Arizona governor bans government-mandated vaccine passports. Epic Times, South Dakota's Nome bans vaccine passports. Breitbart, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer expands mask mandate to 2-year-olds. Mail Online, Ted Cruz says he won't wear a mask in the Capitol because he and everyone in the Senate has been fully vaccinated. From the AP, as mask mandates end, Oregon bucks trend with permanent rule. Have you heard about this out there in Oregon? They're talking about a permanent rule. Yes, a top health official is considering indefinitely extending rules requiring masks and social distancing in all businesses in the state. I'm sorry, once you move to Florida, you'll be much happier here. Strange sounds. First GMO mosquitoes to be released in the Florida Keys. Scientists and locals want to stop the deployment. I would too. And that's not Siesta Key. We're safe up here. That's in the Florida Keys down south of us. But this is not a good idea. This didn't work so well in Brazil. It's not going to work so well in Florida. They will find out after the fact that they have done some damage to the Florida environment. There's no doubt. Zero Hedge. Food prices are rising aggressively. And even corporate media admits it's only going to get worse. The Consumer Price Index rose 0.6% from the previous month, but 2.6% from the same period a year ago. The year-over-year gain is the highest since August of 2018 and was well above the 1.7% recorded in February. 0.6% may not sound like that much, but if you multiply that figure by 12 months, you get an annualized rate of 7.2%. Food is going up. from Wayne, W-A-N-E. Invasive jumping worms spreading throughout several U.S. states. Yeah, jumping worms thrash wildly when handled. They're 4 to 8 inches long, move quickly like a snake, and can shed their tails when threatened. The jumping, that happens. If any of you are here visiting and you see a lizard and you go to grab it, if you grab it by its tail, it'll go away and the tail will be moving in your hand. So just be ready for that. Anyway, where was I? The jumping worms originally came from Asia and were officially found in the Midwest by the University of Wisconsin at Madison in 2013. Researchers have been tracking their movements since then. They may have been brought to the U.S. as fish bait. The worms can be found. My friend in high school had a dog named Fishbait, and because it was a little thing and it was just small enough to put on a hook and throw out for a shark. So actually, I'm sorry, it was called shark bait, not fish bait. Same idea. Anyway, the worms can be found in the top few inches of soil, leaves, or mulch. And they are displacing earthworms, centipedes, and other animals. They also damage plant roots, deplete nutrients, and alter the water-holding capacity of the soil. I mean, they're damaging our crops. Plants become more susceptible to pests, drought, and disease. The worms are a danger to agriculture, gardens, and forests. The jumping worms were more common on the east and west coasts of the United States. Now the worms have been spotted in Midwestern states such as, here we go, Missouri, Illinois, where are you? Illinois, it says you are at 99.7% saturation in Illinois. I'm kidding. I just made that up. Yeah. Missouri, Illinois, Iowa, Kansas, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana, Indiana, Minnesota, Ohio, Kentucky, and Tennessee. Y'all should be moving to Florida right now. The University of Illinois said the worms can't survive past frigid winters of the upper Midwest, but they have egg casings that will persist through the cold winter, so they will come back the next year. Okay, time to move to Florida, everybody. The state of morality is declining. Here's some news on that from Weasel Zippers. I didn't mean to give you a heart attack. That was not nice of me. Weasel Zippers, the New York Times says pronouns will allow people to identify as places and things. You're not just making your own pronoun for like being this type of a person anymore. You can now be a book, and they've got a pronoun for that. Or if you want to be the Statue of Liberty, they've got a special pronoun for that. Insane. From JTN, Biden administration won't define sex as biological as Title IX review starts. No more biological sex in the United States. From Mail Online, are self-driving cars inherently racist? Autonomous vehicles may struggle to recognize dark-skinned faces in the dark, experts warn. NBC, it's not safe. Parents of transgender kids plan to flee their states as GOP bills loom. One, I don't believe that, but two, go ahead. Gateway Pundit, children strut across stage with drag queens. Pose for cash at nightclub. Little kids. Children haven't been able to go to school because of COVID, but they can strut across a stage with drag queens at midnight, and people are giving them money. Can you imagine the parents? That's child abuse.
Yes.
Wow.
New York Post. Disney adopts gender-inclusive costumes for theme park staff. I haven't been to Disney in years, but I would never go there again. Weasel Zippers, FBI announces it has appointed a chief diversity officer. That's their priority right now. With all that's going on in the world, the FBI is worried about a chief diversity officer. From the Epic Times, Olympic athletes who kneel. Last week, the U.S. said they could. Guess what? Olympic athletes who kneel, raise fist, will face punishment, says the IOC. They came out and they said, you're not going to allow that. We're not going to have that here. You Americans want to do that? It ain't going to happen. They're going to lose their medals if they do that kind of nonsense. Good job. Somebody made the right choice. Okay, some other news from around the world. I entitled this, School's Out of Its Mind. Mail Online. Purged. $57,000 a year New York City school ousts math teacher from classroom for threatening well-being of kids by speaking out against woke race lessons. He says head teacher privately agrees with him, but they fired him anyway. Okay, now all of these weren't saved up. Quite often I'll save up a theme and give you an update with a lot of stuff. I didn't have to do that. These are all from this week, every one of them. Mail Online. Parents' anger at $45,000 a year Brentwood School scraps Lord of the Flies and To Kill a Mockingbird for new anti-racism curriculum. Mail Online. Elite Hollywood school where parents say white children are taught they are all racists. Woke weaning is sweeping liberal states as youngsters face identity politics. Literary classics are banned and they can't say mom or dad. Mail Online. Head of elite New York City school Dalton resigns after parents complain about obsessive and wildly inappropriate anti-racism agenda that included reenactments of racist cops in science classes. They're in science classes and they're doing that nonsense. Mail Online. Someone had to speak out. Father who pulled his child from New York City's $53,000 a year Brearley School, whose pupils include Chelsea Clinton's daughter, slams its woke-weaning agenda and says it's teaching kids what to think. Mail Online. White Yale professors branded racist, compared to cop Derek Chauvin, and told to resign from her councilwoman job because she interrupted a black man and told him how to address her during a virtual meeting. You know, this is my title. I'd like you to call me that. Epic Times. California County instructed teachers to hide Marxist training materials from the parents. Teachers in California's Santa Clara County were reportedly instructed last year to hide from students' parents their ethnic studies teaching materials which describe the United States as a settler colonialist regime responsible for genocide and white supremacy. This is what they're teaching the kids, but they don't want the parents to know that. Mail Online. Last week we talked about the school in Seattle that has people sleeping in it and they won't get rid of them unless they give them hotels. Here's some more on that. They're no threat to the kids, though. Oh, no. Seattle dad finds samurai sword in homeless camp outside his son's elementary school and said kids can see vagrants fighting, doing something they shouldn't be doing, if you know what I'm talking about, and doing drugs from the playground. No harm to the kids there. Zero Hedge. Okay, that's enough for the school stuff. Now on to other things. Environmental activist says cheese is racist. Dairy shouldn't be served in British schools. Yes. The world has just gone completely insane. Yes. Cheese. Listen. You stop that. No more cheese for you. Okay, from CG News Service. Austin shooter is black former sheriff. Story dies. Epic Times. Murders rose 56% in major U.S. cities amid defunding push, says the report. From Fox, murders in Los Angeles are up nearly 200%. Violent crime rising at rapid pace, sheriff's statistics show. It's because they have too much cheese in the police department. From Yahoo, U.S. intelligence walks back claim Russians put bounties on American troops. Oh, it didn't happen all of a sudden. Now that our president is out of office. Epic Times. Biden administration orders ICE, Border Patrol, to stop using the term illegal alien. You can no longer do that in U.S. government. Zero Hedge. Let's see. They're not here legally, and they're not residents. They are illegal aliens. Zero Hedge. Minnesota National Guard police team targeted in drive-by shooting hours after Maxine Waters incites BLM protesters. Epic Times. Pelosi says Waters shouldn't apologize for comments on George Floyd trial. From the Federalist. White House condemns Columbus police shooting of teenager with a knife as racist. So we've got all these things going on. We got somebody that's actually an insurrectionist in our Congress, and nothing's being done about it. I saw that email that you sent this morning, Beth, with all of the details on her. Maxine Waters should have been in prison many, many, many years ago. Amen. And they're just letting her get away with this stuff, and people are being shot because of her. Mail Online. Capitol riot martyr cop Brian Sicknick, who laid in honor, suffered 2 strokes after MAGA invasion and died of natural causes, medical examiner rules. Now, they had called the family, and the family said he's right here, he's fine. And they refused to report that. Instead, they reported that his head was bashed in. And the next day, he died of stroke, okay? They lied openly to the American people, which isn't surprising, but I mean, we're doing this with somebody that was then put to lie in state as if, whatever. Okay. Epic Times, Pelosi, Congress needs to investigate January 6th Capitol breach. Do you think so? I think so, but not for the reasons she's saying. Zero Hedge, Pentagon now says Russian troop buildup near Ukraine bigger than in 2014. Remember what 2014 was? Barack Obama? Okay, and then it just went away and now it's back, and they say that the troops are starting to leave and they're dwindling up there. One, I don't believe that, but two, this was not a problem when Trump was president. And now all of a sudden it's a problem again because they want these things to fester so that they can have military budgets and they can scare people. And that's what's going on in the world today. From the Apopka Voice, my friend sent me this from the UK. Thank you, Lee. He sent me this week, a day after something happened at my house. I was out mowing, and I try to be careful around my beehive. Okay, I've got a beehive. I have honey from my beehive. And I was out mowing, and I got the bees in a snit, which happens from time to time, and they come after me. And I got bitten, as I have 9 million, what did I say earlier? 997,932,000 times, okay? Many times. And I've never had any problem with it. And this week, I got stung only 4 times. And I went into shock. My wife got me to the emergency clinic just in time, and they couldn't help me. They gave me some epinephrine. And from there, they had to call the EMS, actually the EMT, but the EMT was busy with other people, so the EMS came. I remember waking up and throwing up and looking down and seeing an armful of tattoos, and then I passed out again, where she thought I died at that time. They gave me some more steroids. The EMS showed up, put me on an ambulance, and took me to the emergency room, and they had a room waiting. I have to thank the people. I haven't done it yet because I've not been feeling well, but I have to thank the people that did these things for me because I was less than minutes away from dying. And so if you have an allergy suddenly show up, be ready for it. I'm telling you this just to be ready for it, okay? Because you don't know when your body's going to change, and I had no idea this was coming. Having said that, from the Apopka Voice, Earth Day saw environmentalists push to save bees needed in Florida. Thursday was Earth Day, and environmental activists were calling on citizens to do their part to save the bees. Charlie Garrett will not be a part of that. I got a question for you. Who said it? Honesty is the first chapter in the book of wisdom. Who said it? Anybody? I got a Maserati here if you... No? No, not Solomon. But it does. Solomon did speak a lot about wisdom. It was Thomas Jefferson. Honesty is the first chapter in the book of wisdom. I got a lesson here for you. There's been so much focus on germs, we forgot about jumping worms. Now the bird's not that late, gets more food on his plate, because his meal also comes from the berms. Okay, we've got a bit of irony here for you today, and be sure, if you watch this video later after it's edited, please be sure to like it so that we can move back up in the ratings. I'm sure we've lost many, many viewers, and also please share it to get people back into watching it in its new format. Okay, this is very sad. I've felt terrible about this, and I'm serious. I'm not making a joke here, but it is ironic, and it's the price we pay for making decisions in this life, okay? But I have personally felt very bad about this over the past week, wishing that people would make right decisions before they met their maker. Argentinian pro-abortion leader dies during abortion procedure. Radical pro-abortion supporter Maria Lopez died during what she labeled her dream abortion operation. She was one of those people celebrating when that was passed a couple months ago, and now she's laying in the ground because she made bad choices. It's ironic. And from Arizona Family, it's more fun than ironic, but it is ironic too. Maricopa woman finds tires slashed and severed finger in her driveway. Yeah, somebody went and slashed her tires and cut off his finger, and they followed the blood trail to the neighbor's house. Such is the world we live in. So from Sarasota, Florida to Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia, I'm Charlie Garrett, and that is your CG report for the week.